Good evening, everyone. It is such a blessing to see us as we log in and we began our time together in sharing this evening. And so we welcome you on behalf of the AME Church Finance Department and the AME Church Office of the General Secretary as we gather tonight to begin what we hope to become a series on global security and safety. And so tonight we are excited about the opportunity to come and to share a general overview and about what we plan to do as we go forward into 2026. So we have a robust plan and program for us this evening. And so thank you for joining us tonight in this plan. Hey, y'all, Dr. Henderson here, because we surely want to say happy birthday to
I
Dr.
am.
Marcus Henderson this evening as he spends his birthday with us. So can you all go ahead and give God some praise for Dr. Marcus Henderson and throw some happy birthdays in the chat and some hearts and some love just to let him know that we appreciate him spending his birthday evening with us. Dr. Henderson, why don't you come and just greet the people this evening on behalf of the finance department?
I will, Madam Secretary. Thank you so very kindly. Greetings and salutations and happy holidays to my wonderful AME family. I thank you so much for those birthday greetings. I pray that this particular platform, this seminar, will be something that will enrich you. We know that cybersecurity is becoming so important within our denomination and I dare say within the world. And I'm just thankful that we have Director Cromwell and Madam Secretary that have put this together. I'm just going to sit and be a participant. I thank you again. God bless you. Stay encouraged, and Merry Christmas to each of you.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Henderson. I did see Bishop Crawford this evening, and so thank you, Bishop, and to all the bishops and leaders of our church who have joined us on this evening. If you will allow me, I'm going to open us in a word of prayer, and then we will go straight into our presentation this evening. God, tonight we say thank you for this opportunity to gather together in this virtual space that we might touch upon something that has impacted the lives of your people and continues to impact the life of our community and our church. So, God, tonight we pray that you would open our hearts and our minds that we might receive a divine wisdom from you. We thank you for our presenter. God, we thank you for this platform and we thank you for this opportunity to grow in our knowledge that you provide this opportunity for us this evening. This we ask tonight in Jesus' name. And the people of God together say it. Amen.
Amen.
As Dr. Henderson has already alluded, we have the Director of Global Security with us tonight for the AME Church, who will come and share in his own way, in his own right. But tonight, let me just give you, we have a beautiful introduction for Director Cromwell. He didn't even know this. Uh, But let me give you a moment, and let me share an introduction for our presenter this evening as he prepares to come and take the reins. Give me just one moment as I pull up our introduction this evening.
Mr. Aku Cromwell serves as the Director of Global Security for the AME Finance Department. Coming from a background of almost 30 years with law enforcement and security at the municipal and federal government levels, Mr. Cromwell is driven to ensure that the African Methodist Episcopal Church exists as a safe haven for worshipers all over the world. With a focus on bridging linguistics and cultural barriers, he provides a safe environment for worship while emphasizing the diverse and international backgrounds of our faith. He is a native of Baltimore and has spent more than 24 years in the Georgia area. While there, he graduated from the University of Georgia. With a passion for travel and language, he has lived in 3 different nations and traveled to more than 65 countries. His other hobbies include slow barbecue cooking, roasting coffees of the world, motorcycling, and scuba diving. Mr. Cromwell and his wife have 2 sons. Having been raised most of his life in the AME Church, he is very familiar to the church and is deeply invested in its success. We thank God for the Aku Cromwell.
Why don't you all give God some praise this evening for our presenter, Mr. Aku Cromwell, as he comes, and he's going to share in his own way, in his own right this evening. Come, Director Cromwell, we look forward to seeing what God has for us this evening. I can't hear you, Dr. Cromwell.
That was actually what I was asking. Still nothing? Okay, excellent. Thank you. I was actually asking whether you could hear me, so I greatly appreciate that, and thank you. I truly appreciate the introduction and appreciate the beautiful intro from all of you. And happy birthday again, Dr. Henderson. Appreciate that. So very briefly, I want to give you all some information for this evening, and I'm going to. It's going to be an introduction. It's going to be an introduction to the series. I guess you can consider it like the pilot of a series that our CIO and our CFO are working together in order to get presented for you all. So, in the interest of time, I will just say that we are not going to delve super deep into these topics, but at the end, we will allow some time in order to have some questions if you all have them, in order for us to go a little deeper with that. So, without further ado, we are going to discuss the cyber safety in times like these. And if you would please, if you could just give me an indication that you all are seeing the introduction on the slide. Excellent. Thank you, ma'am. All right. So we're going to start off with a little bit of a pretest. And with our pretest, we're going to just try to figure out where we are along this spectrum. And I know some of you are probably saying, I don't even really use a computer much. Why should I care about this? So just if you would please, if you could give me a thumbs up so we can figure out where we are along this spectrum and figure out how we are looking as far as our participation goes on this. So do you all know where your driver's license or ID cards are right now? If you can just give me, all right, everybody's got a pretty good idea of where those are. How about where all of your credit cards are? All of them, if you all have multiple cards. Seeing a few less confirmed looks. Okay, seeing a couple. All right, do you know where your passport is if you haven't used it recently? You still have a pretty good idea where to find that. All right, seeing a couple of thumbs ups in there. All right, do you have all of your passwords in a safe place? Do you know all of your various passwords? And this is where we start to get into that murky area where people are like, well, I know I created a password, but I'm not 100% certain that I have all of them. So the next one is, do you know where that hard copy of your Social Security card is that you may have used in order to get a job way back when? Probably haven't seen that one again. Okay, we're seeing a couple great thumbs up there. Fantastic. Thank you much. How about your hard copy of your birth certificate? Do we still know where that one is? Maybe your marriage license if you're still married. So these are things that all together help us to form what we need to control with our information and with cybersecurity. So now we're going to delve into what the definition of cybersecurity is. And also, by the way, you all can, if you're on a laptop or tablet and you have your phone accessible and you want to, you can take screenshots. We are going to share this information with you all in the future. It will be accessible, so you don't have to worry about it. It will be in a reference form that you all can look back at. But this is one of the best definitions of cybersecurity that you all are going to have, and it will be an introduction to this series, and we want you all to work with this. Cybersecurity involves identifying our assets. What is it that we have? We're going to determine our risks, our behavior, other things that are out there that may be trying to get toward our information. Those are considered threats, and we're going to isolate them. We're going to quarantine them, to use some of the trade terminology. We're going to put them in a separate area so that we can figure out whether they're really threats. And then we're going to minimize our vulnerabilities by certain things that we're going to do starting tonight. So cyber threats, we're going to look at cyber threats and our assets. What assets do our churches possess? What is it that we have that would be of any interest to anybody out there in the world? Why would somebody be trying to hack into our systems to send us these emails teasing us? So we're looking at banking and financial records, pastoral counseling, medical and psychological, sometimes protected HIPAA information, and other personally identifiable information for each of us, such as our dates of birth, our social security number, our addresses, our telephone numbers. This is information that there are entities out there, sometimes companies, sometimes governments, that want to have that information about us. So that poses for us economic power also. We have power from that we can do with boycotting. If you remember the call for us to not be going to businesses such as Target, to have blackout weeks where we weren't shopping right around Black Friday. We have a lot of political influence, de facto political influence in our churches. And those of you who may have watched the online streaming or been present in person for the homegoing celebration of Bishop Jackson, you saw the power of the politicians that were present there. They recognized the power that continues to exist with our church. And then there's some symbolic association just because of what we are and what we represent. That is the reason that we may be targeted by individuals as well as in person as well as online in cybersecurity. So the threats that are out there, we could have adware, which is a part of malware, but it's not as malicious, if you will. And adware serves its purpose of trying to monitor some of our habits there, but we're going to get into that. And then we have email fraud, spoofing, phishing, which is spelled differently, Phising. And that includes spear phishing. We're going to discuss ransomware and why people would use that. Spamming, spyware, Trojan horses, and then insider threat concerns. What happens if you upset somebody who has access to your system and they could damage your information that's there? We're going to discuss vulnerabilities and how to deal with them. We're going to talk about encryption during the course of this series, how to make our information more protected, and is it truly protected? Putting up firewalls and having antivirus software. And then you may have heard of TFA, which is two-factor authentication, or MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. After tonight, you're going to have a good idea of that. But the whole thing is that risks are a product of our threats and our vulnerabilities compared to our assets. So if there are people that are out there that are looking for information, but we don't have any information that's of value to them, they probably aren't going to be looking at us for very long. But if we have access to information, to systems, and we have people that are out there moving and shaking in the world, those are the people who are going to be the targets eventually of these cyber actors and cyber attackers. So during the course of this series, we will discuss why you and your church need to take steps, how to better handle your emails with phishing and spear phishing, keeping our phones and mobile devices updated with current protection, how to best behave on social media to protect ourselves and our families, and then the digital footprints that we have out there. What kind of trail do you leave when you're out there in the internet, when you're clicking different links in social media, when you're surfing, when you're shopping? What kind of trail is it that we leave? So the first thing that we're going to look at is the assets, why you and your church need to take steps. So we have a lot of information that we may not consider super sensitive, but there are people out there who are really interested in that. And this is just an online example of a fillable document for church membership records. So some of the information that it may include are name, address, telephone number, marital status, your birthday, your anniversary, your membership days. And then other times it may include things like where people work, but that may not always be information that somebody wants shared out there with some of these governments and attackers who are trying to get this information. So we in the United States in particular, even though I know we may have some joining also from in the 14 through 20, and thank you if you are here, we have a lot of turmoil going on. We have people that are protesting all around the world, but also throughout the United States. And some of these protests can get really agitated. What you see here is an example of the anti-ICE protest, where you have immigrants. I believe this is actually in the streets of Los Angeles that they are walking here. But we also have people that are walking around like these on the streets of New York that are walking around and protesting what's going on in Gaza and Palestine. So part of the United States is in favor and part of the United States is opposed to it. And it's causing division. But we have other issues even within our country, such as LGBTQ rights that are at question. And there's division there, or even the government itself. So when we have this degree of division, that makes us unstable. And there are other entities out there, particularly governments, that will want to see us unstable and take steps in order to do that. Now, this is an example of a poster back from the Soviet era that says Boltat Vragu Pamagat, which means gossip helps the enemy. And that's saying, keep quiet. The more we complain about stuff, the more we discuss and rumor things, particularly in social media, the more we're going to put out there stuff that is usable by certain entities. Now, I'm not saying that everybody is going to have concern about it, but let's consider, for instance, the disinformation campaigns that are out there that are being sponsored by certain governments throughout even one particular continent other than our own. If we are showing the instability, then that creates opportunities for other. And that's exactly what we're seeing here in this poster, where you see that other governments are taking opportunities. And without me specifying what those governments are, you can see how it is that certain other countries may take opportunities from the instability that we put out there. So the information, the instability, all of that is creating an opportunity. In case you had not heard, and thank you, Madam CIO, for having put one of my favorite quotes out there, the sun does not set on the AME Church. We are in 41 countries, and we are literally all around the world. The spots that you see us having contact on these maps, we have churches in several of these spots. So we could have that to be concerned with. So how about these threats? How do we better handle stuff with our own personal emails? So sometimes your emails will go into your spam folder or your junk folder, and sometimes they don't. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at that and figure out, how do we assess this? How do we figure out what it is that we can do to protect ourselves? And I'm not asking you to open up one of those spam or junk emails right now, but later on, I want you to look at this more closely and be very careful when you do so, because I don't want you to click on the links, but I want you to see the examples that I'm going to give you. So phishing. Phishing is a big term here. Phishing is a cybercrime in which a target, and it's usually more than one target when we're talking about just the term phishing, they are contacted by email, telephone, or text message by somebody who's trying to look like a company or like a person in order to get sensitive information. They're trying to get you to do something like, hey, can you send me some money? Or, hey, can you just answer these quick couple of questions? They want to get you to give passwords, credit cards, information like that. And the way that you can usually tell phishing is if you look up at the top in what's called the header and see who it's addressed to. In my case, my personal email starts just like my work email with the letter A. So I've noticed that a lot of these phishing emails will have 25 different people that are in the address label that say everybody starting with the letter A. Well, that's just a phishing attempt. It's just throwing it out there, just like bait on a hook in order to see, okay, who's going to grab onto this? Who's going to be the one that bites on my information and actually responds to this email? The best thing you can do is to put it into the junk folder, delete it, ignore it, do not give it a reply. So then there's spear phishing. Spear phishing is a little bit different than the other level because they have identified something about you that makes you a great target of information. And I'm going to use her for just an example here. So, Madam CIO, if she is the person who controls the information for all of the AME church and has all of the contact information, she is a prime target with a lot of these spearfishers because they're going to say she is going to open up Pandora's box and give us all of the access to all of this different information. So they're going to try to go specifically at her. Well, there are other individuals who have a lot of access to information, and we have one bishop
That's
on
fine.
here.
What I'm gonna
But
eat? Cause you said you get a whole one.
we have a lot
I'll
of
go find something to eat. You go ahead.
I'm not sure who that was, but if I'm glad that you can get something to eat, sir. But if you could mute for us, we would appreciate that. So another target of spear phishing is when they will look at the bishops because they know that a bishop has control over a large region, many presiding elders, conferences, churches. And so what they're going to say is, okay, if we can act like a bishop and be credible with it when we send out an email acting like this bishop, we'll get other people to answer that. So the best thing that you can do when you get an email from somebody that you don't usually get, if you are not routinely getting emails or text messages or whatever from bishops and general officers, then it may not be that that's actually who is reaching out to you. So you can find a way to come around and ask them through a different channel and contact them. Do the actual phone calling where you pick them up and you say, hello, did you actually call me? Did you actually text me? Excuse me. Did you text me? Did you send me an email? Because this doesn't sound like you. And in most cases, those people will say, no, that wasn't me. So check it before you reply to it, because when you reply to it, you open up that pathway of communication. When you click on the links that it looks like they're sending, you've opened up that pathway. So here are some of the indicators that you can use in order to tell when you are getting some of those kinds of emails. All right. These are examples of emails that I got, and we'll look at stuff that that stands out here and looks a little bit different. So one thing that I want you to see over here is funny editor. When it's something like that, I don't even know what funny editor is, but I don't have a lot of funny type emails going on in my normal email inbox. So CVS shopper. I don't really shop at CVS. Not that there's anything wrong with the CVS pharmacy. It's just I don't shop there. So I could tell that this was telling me this was an attempt at phishing in order to see whether I'm going to actually bite off on it and answer this. And it was listed as to me directly. So it's not like the other email over here where it's blind copied to me and a whole bunch of recipients. But if you have actually not gone recently to a place, or as it's asking about the experience there, where it's not something that you shop at regularly, then take a pause and think about it. So the first thing is the email address is laughing@n4funnyeditor.com. That email address looks wrong in so many ways. It's just not a normal email address. And then there's a button to click and take a CVS survey. Do not click for the surveys. If it's legitimately something from a company that you have routinely used, like you've just made a purchase on Amazon from a specific company and that specific company reaches out to you, or you've just recently traveled and the mode of transportation reaches out to you, United Airlines, Delta Airlines, whatever, we'd like feedback on the specific experience. Take a moment and look at that email address before you actually click that button to give feedback. Or you could do like most people do, and the reality of it is most people don't answer those surveys anyway, so you can ignore it and not take that chance. But over here, this number at qq.com on the other one for a rating 5-star, It's possible that someone has an email that's a number at something like that, but it's not very common. So we want to look at this and figure out whether or not that seems right. The fact that I'm blind copied with a whole bunch of other individuals is probably an indicator of a mass email and not just a one-off type situation. It says hi with a space and a comma. Grammatically, they're starting to get bad with their punctuation. The lowercase on Amazon, anybody who's actually sending something from Amazon will always capitalize their business name. So look for grammatical errors or inconsistencies. If a person is really meticulous with their grammar and they're sending you an email that has errors, it's probably not them. Autocorrect is going to tell them before they send it certain things that they want to look out for. And if they're really concerned with their communication, they're not going to send something that is grammatically bad. Again, the rating *5 is okay. So all of those are indications of things that we can look out for. So before you actually, one other thing, before you actually click in order to go to something like this, hold your cursor over the button, like the survey button, and just hold it there for a moment if you're on a desktop or a laptop, and allow in order to see what the link is taking you to if you have any question. Or before you click reply to something, reach out and try to confirm with them. I hope those are some helpful steps for that. So let's talk about our mobile phones and our mobile devices. And we're going to, on all of these topics, by the way, we are going to go into in depth in them in the future with Madam CIO and our CFO. We're going to get in depth and we're going to delve deeper. So if you do have more questions about these, please do bear in mind that this is really just an introduction. So the first question that we hear a lot is it legal for telemarketers and fundraisers to reach out to me? Yes, it is. In this day and age, a lot of times computers will actually reach out. Now, the advancement in artificial intelligence is incredible because it can really sound like a human for a while, even though the responses will get a little bit different if you start giving more complicated replies to it. So sometimes the computer will sound like a human when it calls you, but the best thing that you can do is to reject unknown callers, and I'll show you all how to deal with that one in 2 seconds. But what if these robocalls just keep calling? What do you do? How do you change it? You can definitely block it and silence the calls. A lot of people don't want the inconvenience of changing their number, but taking the steps in order to silence unknown callers and use smart call features, it helps a lot. It does not eliminate it, but it will tell you that it's probably a spam call when it shows up on the screen. And that's one thing that's huge. The other thing is you should really keep the software updated on your phone. And I'm going to show you all how to update the software on Apple devices and Samsung Galaxy devices. But you need to keep the applications, the apps updated also. So that's crucial. Why? I know people are asking me all the time, why do I really need to keep the software updated? Well, every day I get multiple emails from the Department of Homeland Security about 1 or 2 different variations where a virus is trying to be attacked in the cyber world. And what they're trying to do is just like actual biological viruses in the real world, they're always changing just a little bit in order to get behind that system, in order to get behind that firewall, in order to attack differently. So when we think that we have a way that is foolproof in order to do it, and we think that all of our software is properly updated, they're going to go in and they're going to change and tweak just a little bit in order to get behind that system. So by keeping your software updated daily, you can find out whether there are new protections that are out there in order for you to be safer with your phones. Now, with that said, let's look at the 2 common systems that we have here. If you want to block your calls and you're on an iPhone, you're going to go under the settings feature, which looks like a gear, and settings is the same, looking like the gear in both the Samsung and in the iPhone. You're going to go into settings, and in the iPhone, you're going to go under your phone part, and you're going to scroll down and tap silence unknown callers. And once you go under phone and silence unknown callers, you are going to get a lot less junk calls. And it will be like that for a while. Um, I have my phone, the phone number that I use, my personal phone is the phone that is available to everyone in the AME church. So there are some times that I get phone calls from a particular region in a particular part of South Florida where it will tell me that it thinks that it's spam. And so I will ask that if you happen to be in South Florida and you are calling me and trying to reach out, please do leave a message. I will call you back, but it may be that the spam filter or the silence filter has put you all in timeout there for a little while. So I will get back to you on that one. Now, if you have Smart Call on the Samsung, what you're going to do is go under the phone, more options with the three dots, and then tap settings. And then when you go down to caller ID and spam protection, you're going to turn that one on. And both of these will help you eliminate a lot of the noise from people calling you and calling you at all hours of day, because I've definitely experienced that. So one other thing in order that we spoke of is the software updates. So when you go under that settings icon that looks like a gear in your iPhone, and you go under the general button, which also looks like a gear, you're going to see software update. Now, I know some people have said, well, I just don't know about all of these software updates. I don't know whether I want to have the newest stuff that they're trying out and testing. I don't know if that's going to be good. Uh, well, the reality of it is by the time they have released it, particularly the late beta versions or the actual official release versions, they have put in the stuff that has the necessary security elements in it. So your biggest thing that you can do, especially if you want to be at the front edge of trying out new stuff and you do try the beta stuff, just make sure that you do software updates. So please, 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 because that software update not only protects your phone, but it protects the people that you reach out to, because a hacker will get in with phishing and they will get into your phone. And when you respond to their email, it opens it up and gives them access to all of your contacts. So it makes other people's phones vulnerable the same way. So it's kind of like having a virus. If you don't protect yourself, everybody else that gets in contact with you is also going to be vulnerable to that. Now, let's look over here at the Samsung Galaxy. Here's a demo for that. So when you swipe up, you go to settings, and then you're going to see that gear, and then you're going to see under settings, software update. Please check for software updates daily. It's not actually that software updates exist every single day, but it's usually once or twice a week that there will be some slight tweak to that software update that will give you additional protection. So put that one in there. And also with your applications, please go, in the case of the iPhone, please do go underneath your app store. And when you open up your App Store icon in the upper right corner, you're going to see your profile icon. And then when you push that, that will open up the account for your profile. And then swipe up and see whether you have any application updates that are there, or just pull down in order to refresh it. And it will tell you whether there are any updates. Now, the App Store, particularly if you have a lot of different apps on your phone, you're going to have daily updates, sometimes multiple times a day for that one. So what else is it that we need to do with our information in order to make sure that we are playing it safe? How to best behave on social media to protect ourselves and our families. One of the biggest things that I want you all to do is to take a moment, whether we're talking about Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. I'm trying to think of any other things that people might use in order to post stuff, sometimes even LinkedIn, but less often. I want you to take a moment and pause before you post. Pause before you post. I'm going to show you a brief video that's going to be an introduction to why it is that I want you to pause before you post. And we're going to confirm in just 1 second that you all can see that one after we click. All right. Can you hear? Can you see? Okay, just 1 second. I'm going to switch the share to that screen for 1 second. Bear with me. All right. And here we go. You can't hear? Okay. All righty. That was a little more complicated than I thought that one might be with trying to share that. So there is a link that I will share with you all later, which is from the Irish, interestingly, but it is a link that will allow you all to see why it is important that we not share this information out there online. And what it's talking about specifically is when we start posting stuff about our families, when we start posting stuff about ourselves, we all just a moment ago were very nicely congratulating and celebrating Dr. Henderson, and I will actually for just a moment use that as an example. Now, fortunately, I'm not going to give any details, but this one is not a milestone year for him. But sometimes, a lot of times, when we hit milestone years, people will flood our Facebook pages in order to say happy whatever milestone that is. Well, when we put that information out there, the problem with that is you have then given everybody out there exact information about your identity, which is your date of birth. When you take that actual day and you put out there happy 50th, he might be coming up on his 50th. So happy 50th, and you put that out there, and all of a sudden you have his exact date of birth. So that's the type of information that we really want to be careful about, because it's better to just send them a private message, a direct message, in order to say, hey, happy birthday. Send them a text message, or go really old school and pick up the phone and just call them and say, hey, how you doing? Happy birthday. These are the steps that we want in order to make sure that we are taking care of our people and sharing the proper information the proper way. All right. So let's go to the next screen. So pause before you post and sharenting. What is it that you post about your family and when? The other thing that video addresses is when you're talking about, oh, my son has a flag football tournament and just won it, and it is the specific 8 and under category group. So you know his age, you know where he's playing, you know things like that. So some people are like, well, why don't you ever post stuff about your family on Facebook? You know, that's what it's for, to share social media. Yeah, but that's too much information when I'm putting all of that out there. So that's why I'm very judicious with sharing of that information. All right. So in Instagram, when you post your chats and your photos and it has location tags, you're putting all that information out there by design in an instant, but it's saying where you are. It's saying what you're doing, where you are, and often with whom. So you have put out there a lot of information for people who are trolling on that information. Twitter and X, it's all about sharing your thoughts. Do you really want all of your thoughts shared out there with the world? Because when you post that thought, particularly something in anger, you have put that one out there for the world, and you've created a record of it, because whoever sees it can screenshot it and it's there. So TikTok, another question is, who controls TikTok and also Facebook, and why? If you all remember, when they were being looked at more closely, there were some questions about the TikTok platform. Okay, what country is wanting us to do this? What country is wanting us to use this? Why is there so much heat on this? Well, the reason for that is because it's in another country's interest. When we show that instability, they're interested in who's clicking on what, who's watching what. And you create an actual profile that they continue to follow when you're going through and you're doing mouse clicks. If you've never noticed that, it's called the algorithm that creates exactly what it is that you're interested in. So if you're clicking on all the time, and I'm gonna make this one up because I actually don't have a lot of this on mine. But if you're getting those little blue pills and you keep seeing Viagra commercials popping up all through your stuff, then that's because you clicked on it. You showed an interest in it. Another thing, this is one that I do have a lot of, is the fleece wear. For some reason, I clicked on a fleece jacket one time, and it just keeps asking me, "Hey, are you interested in this fleece company? If not, how about this one?" So the purpose of it is it creates adware. It tracks. Okay, well, he was interested in this. What was it that he was interested in? Was he interested in the fabric? Was he interested in the color? Was he interested in the company? And so by tracking on the number of clicks and what you do, you create a profile that lets them know exactly what it is that you're interested in all the time in the internet. That is our digital footprint. All right. So what about other chat apps like Snapchat, Signal, and WhatsApp? Are they truly secure with their communication? Well, I think you can ask what used to be considered our Secretary of Defense. Now we call him our Secretary of War. I think that he will tell you that your communications and Signal are not that secure. It is not a secure platform. It is not appropriate for secret and top secret communication. It can be hacked. Are the encryption levels better for personal communication? Sure, but it's not anything that cannot be hacked. So I want you all to be aware that your communications in WhatsApp and Signal can still be monitored, and they are still discoverable. If you say something in a group, for instance, I often tell people, if you cannot pay for headsets for communication for a security group at your medium or large size church, and you decide you're going to have a chat app that you use in order to talk about security questions at your church, realize that comments that you say about somebody looking a certain way or somebody acting a certain way, all of that can still be discoverable if somebody goes back and says, well, such and such did such and such, or this happened in a courtroom. They can go back and say, did you all discuss this in chat? And then they can ask for copies of all of that information. They can get it from the company, even if you've tried to delete it. So be cognizant of your chats there. So your digital footprint, when you connect to free Wi-Fi in public places, it actually costs you. It costs you information. It costs you your shopping habits. It may cost you your banking information, your personal data, your passwords, because sometimes people will act as if they are a free Wi-Fi source, particularly in places like airports, shopping malls, things like that. Be very careful about that. If it requires a password for you to log in, that's a lot better. It's not 100%, but it's a lot better. So there are people who can get into that same channel of communication, kind of like sitting in a room where you're discussing stuff. And if you were at a party and you were to say, oh yeah, you needed to know my password, it's such and such. So if you say that without protection measures in place, it's basically the same thing as saying that in a public venue, because there's not always going to be that level of protection, particularly if it's a free one that does not require a logon. So if you really need to log in and get some information and communication across, realize that when you log on, you are opening the portal into your phone. You are opening that information up. So be careful about that. You can use VPNs, which are called virtual provider networks, in order to give you a little bit of protection. But please use password protection whenever you can, when you're logging on to Wi-Fi. Ad companies use these cookies in order to push and control your purchases, just like I described a moment ago. And hackers will tap into those networks. They will pose as the network with a slight difference in name. So instead of it being Starbucks, it will be Starbucks 2 or Starbucks for you or something like that, that still entices you to log on to that one. And you leave a trail of data about what you've searched and your password activity. When you have location services on, they can be convenient, but also think about them before you use them, because you are leaving a digital trail, a digital footprint of where you were. Now we're going to also talk about passwords and things that you can do in order to stay safer in these times. So I want you to think of someone or something or some place that is important to you, but less known to others. I want you to think about the first item about those dates or ways that you can reverse that information, but in a way that you remember it. And then for step 3, we're going to replace some of that with some symbols so that you will have something that you can use for that. Ideally, you want to have multiple passwords and save them in a password bank. But if you have one complex password that you can tweak a little bit, you will be able to do a lot more with it. So what am I talking about? When you think of locations that are not directly associated with you, for instance, with us, let's say Philadelphia. Well, Philadelphia has significance to every single one of the 322 of us on this screen. So what are the years that we would associate uh, with Philadelphia? That's specifically 1787 or 1816, depending on how you want to go with that. And by the fact that we should know both of those in their significance, and not using dates that are date of birth of our children or something like that, it gives us something that we can work with. So now we have to tweak a little bit, but remember your system for it. So in this case, I put in 1787 Philadelphia, but I replaced all of the I's with exclamation mark. The A's are replaced with the @ symbol, and the letter E is replaced with 3. So it's 1787 Philadelphia. Well, if you know what you're looking at, that makes sense. But if not, it's going to give you just a little bit of pause in order for a hacker to say, well, okay, I can see what they're doing, but it's not something that's automatically going to come up there. Can a hacker get into that password as it is? Absolutely. But it's going to take them thinking, okay, well, what are the different things that they could substitute for the letter I? The number 1, the exclamation mark, things like that. So it's going to require a little bit more of a computer going through that in order to do that. So now let's look at it for different services. So this one, as you can probably deduce, is 1787 Philadelphia Netflix. So this could be your Netflix password. And again, I've just replaced using the same system of letters. The E is a 3, the I is the exclamation, and the X in this case is an asterisk. So that's the way that we've replaced that one. So maybe if it's for Amazon Prime, 1787 Philadelphia Prime. So these are the ways that we can do that. Verizon as another example. So what about when it says, okay, well, you only have your password for 30 days and then you have to change your password. You have to reset your password. Think about keeping it in sequence. So 1787 Philadelphia, Netflix 99. That's one way to remember it. And then go one step down from it so that you remember, oh yeah, well, last time it was 99, let's go with 98. So you can remember that. Are these passwords that are absolutely unable to be hacked? No, but it's going to require a whole lot of work in order to get through 1787 Philadelphia, Netflix 99 in that type of sequence. I'm giving you all stuff that will make your information much more secure. All right. I can't remember all these passwords. Well, in your iPhone, it will actually give you the option of use strong password and also whether you want to save passwords. And in Samsung Galaxy, it will ask you about password generators, whether you want to use uppercase, lowercase numbers. And the other thing that you can use are authenticator apps. An authenticator will have a scrolling series of numbers that gets reset after a certain interval, usually about 30 seconds. It will have a number that's up there, a 6-digit number, an 8-digit number, but that number constantly rotates. And the generator knows, as well as the website that you're logging into, what that number should be. And so if you don't get it right within that given amount of time, you are not going to get in. So authenticator apps are really good. And you see the example in the lower right-hand corner of Aegis as to how it is rotating through in order to give you different examples there for Buy Me a Coffee and Facebook and Microsoft Outlook. So that is how multi-factor authentication works. Now, two-factor authentication and MFA, multi-factor authentication, they are examples where you have to take 2 steps. And I know you all are thinking, this is so different from when I was much younger. We didn't have to worry about with any of this. Well, your information is out there floating around in what we call the cloud. So if you want to keep that information protected, you have to take these extra steps. But here's the other thing about it is, if you go to log on to one of these sites and you are not the person that is, I'm sorry, if someone else goes to log on to it and you are not the person who is actually doing it, it will send you a confirmation. So for instance, I think it was 1 or 2 days ago, my older son, he was trying to log on to an HBO website and it said, here is your 6-digit code. And I looked at my email and I said, are you trying to log on? Because I'm not logging on. He was like, yes, it was me. So I actually shared that code with him because I knew that he was trying to do that because that account is associated with my email address. So it notifies you if someone is trying to use your information in an inappropriate way. So two-factor authentication, whether you get a phone call or a text message, multi-factor authentication, where it may be that you use an authenticator app and a code, or biometric with Face ID or a fingerprint on some phones like the Samsung. All of these are ways you want to keep MFA, you want to keep TFA activated because that protects your information more. Antivirus software, when you buy your computer, a lot of this information is first offered to you. It's first put out there on your computer and it says, hey, do you want to keep up this subscription? And I know you're thinking, man, I just put out this money for this computer. I don't want to have to put out money in order to have a subscription in order to keep this software updated. Well, that keeps your information secure. And so some of the big companies, McAfee, Norton, those are the ones that are definitely going to provide stuff and give you that security of your information. But again, you have to keep the software definition, the virus definitions updated. It's crucial that you keep all of this information updated. All right. Data blockers. These are really cool. So there may be some of you out there that are really good about taking your charger and your cable with you everywhere that you go. Whether you're using the USB-A to a USB-C or USB-C to USB-C with faster connection, or whether even better, you're taking a power bank, these are all great options so that you have the ability to recharge your device and not plug into public places. If you plug into the back of your seat and you're flying on an airplane, you may not know it, but what you're doing is you are putting in adware into your telephone at that same moment. And I know you're thinking, what? I had no idea. Well, it's all there in order to get information about your shopping habits, your surfing habits. So when you are physically connecting your device into that seat, you are giving that company your information. So what is it that you can do in order to protect yourself? Well, there are things, and this is the older version, this is the USB-A. If you've ever looked down, and I know you're all going to do it after you get off this call, if you've ever looked down into a USB-A plug, you will see 4 little strips here, little brass strips that are painted in there. Well, 2 of them are power, kind of like positive and negative. The other 2 are channeling your information. It shares your information. And it's also the reason that if you were to plug your phone into the side of a computer, you hear that bloop, bloop, that little plug and play sound that we're used to hearing. Well, if you have what's called a data blocker, you see that the power connections on the far left and the far right are still there, but the 2 inner strips are not connecting. So the information is not being shared the same way. So the power connects, but the information does not. And I know some of you all are thinking, well, even in the world of technology, he's kind of old using that one. So let's talk about the USB-C. Well, that one's a faster connection, but the ground on the outside, there are 24 different brass connections inside a USB-C. And the ones that are in here, 4 in from the left, 4 in from the right, those are the ones that are actually carrying the power. The rest of this is all information that is being shared very, very quickly, which is why USB-C is so popular. But USB-C plugs, they also have USB-C data blockers that are out there. Data blockers, like the ones that I just showed you here, data blockers are not expensive. You can find them online, places like Amazon for $10 for multiple packs. And if you do insist on not using things like these when you're out there traveling, you need to use a data blocker when you're plugging into these different charging spots, because that is what's going to protect your information. So the last thing that we will talk about really quickly, because we're getting tight on time, is what about paper files? When you're handling the sensitive information of churches, I know some of us don't want to get away from those paper checks. Think about who really needs to have this information and have access to it. How often do you hold on to the information, and when do you get rid of it? Ideally, 5 years, but it should be no more than 10 years. Um, how are you dealing with it? Are you shredding it? Are you burning it? Shredders are great. There are different levels that are out there, and I'm going to show you real quick images of those shredders. But you can have shredders in your home so that you're not when you get a bill, when you get something with credit card or social security information, and you just throw it in the trash can, and that trash gets blown down the street because it's a windy day, your information is out there blowing down the street. It is better to just put it in a shredder and get all of your information handled, particularly if you're dealing with the information of a church. So this is the P3 level, which is the minimum that you should be using. P1 and P2 do exist, but P3 is the minimum that you should be using. And that's pretty close to what those strips look like, blown up a little bit for the screen. P4 is excellent. You can't put these pieces back together once you're at P4. It would take so much work and be such a headache that only high-tech intelligence agencies are going to be dealing with that level of information. P5, fantastic. If you can get a P5 shredder, it's great, but they're a lot more expensive as we go up in these numbers here. P6 is really where most government agencies will use this. Those fine particles actually look like dust and they get everywhere. But P6 is what most documents at most government agencies are shredded down to, because it's almost impossible to put all of those pieces back together. Now, there are certain government agencies that will actually use P7, but that stuff gets burned and never leaves the compound of those types of locations. So real quickly, we're reviewing our introduction. So I want you to use MFA, multi-factor authentication, on your accounts, or TFA at the very least. I want you to update the software on all of your devices. If you have a phone and a tablet and a watch, I want you to update all of that, and also your desktop or your laptop if you have those. Enable auto updates, but please go back and check to make sure that there's no security stuff that's been updated. Also, pause before you post. Think before you click. Don't just automatically do it because it seems like it's important from that person. Make sure that it's actually from that individual and double check with them. Use strong passwords and consider a password manager to keep that information if you can't remember all of the variations of it, or even use it to generate unique passwords for you. The last thing that I'm going to put up here on the screen is one that if you're not on your phone and you're on a computer, you can actually use your phone in order to access this. This is from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. And these are ways that you can use to help keep your information more secure. So you can use that link. I'm going to keep that one up there for a while. And you can use that QR code, and you will find a lot of hyperlinks for information that we've already discussed that will go more in depth for you, because we have covered 56 minutes here. And I just want to make sure that you also have access to that information to do the homework on your own if you want to. And with that, in the last couple of minutes, Madam Secretary, I will ask if we have any questions. And thank you very
So,
much.
Director Cromwell, the chat is full of questions. And
Yes, ma'am.
so, if you are able to stick around and answer some questions,
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Reverend Angelique is going to start with what's in the chat, and then we'll take hands.
Fantastic.
So, Reverend Angie, you ready?
I am. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Our first question, many websites are asking to accept cookies and does not allow moving forward unless you make an option. How safe is it to accept all cookies?
Yes, ma'am. Generally, these websites will also ask whether you want to accept only essential cookies. And the essential cookies are telling it necessary information that it has in order to navigate to it. A lot of times they will also ask you whether you want to if you click the options that are underneath the cookies, it will ask you about sharing only your email address, for instance, and not also your entire contact list. So look at the options that are there and don't just automatically click allow the essential cookies. I'm sorry, don't just automatically click allow all cookies. Click either essential cookies or go into it and figure out and share that little bit, just a very little bit that you can in order to navigate to the site that you want. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is going back to hotel internet. What about hotels? Is hotel internet secure?
It really varies hotel to hotel, but generally speaking, as I said in the presentation, if you have to enter a password, if you have to put in your room number and your last name, for instance, there's one hotel chain that does that. That's not quite the same as the password, but it does help to keep out people who cannot automatically put together A and B in order to say, well, you know, Mr. Smith is in room 123. So they can't just automatically guess all of that. But high-tech hackers are still going to be able to get into it. And the way to think about whenever you're on public networks is like you're standing in an open room and whatever you're discussing is audible to the right individuals who have the technology in order to hear it. So if you're discussing something super sensitive, take it to a different channel of communication. You can text somebody using or message somebody using something like Signal. You can make sure that encryption is activated on your phones or on your tablets, but try to make sure that you are taking all of the necessary protection measures that you can and not just ignoring those for convenience.
Thank you, Director. This question has come up a couple of times.
Yes, ma'am.
Is reporting phishing emails to the email provider a good idea?
You can report them to the email provider. Now, what I would say is you definitely want to report them to the individual if it's spoofing of another individual. For instance, if I were to get an email from Madam CIO and it says, hey, I need you to send me $20 in Cash App. She's never asked me to send her $20 for Cash App. Now, if she sends me something that says, hey, we really want you to contribute to this event that's going on at our church, and she sends that to me in an email and I know that that's the email address, then yes, she's legitimately saying, hey, we have an event going on at church. Would you like to donate? Which is different. So think about the context of it. If somebody's asking you to Cash App them money that is not someone who would normally ask you, think about that, pause, give them a call and say, this is a little bit weird. This does not sound characteristic of you. Maybe we can delve into this a little bit deeper and find out where this is coming from. So sometimes people will actually have traceable email addresses, but I will tell you that our success rate is relatively low because a lot of times these professional hackers in this day and age, they will create an email address that exists for just a couple of hours for the purpose of putting that out there. And then if I go to do the checks on the email address, it says that it's never been reported suspiciously because it was only created hours ago. So that tells me, okay, this is somebody who's just generated it, who's trying to create something new. So if you do get a suspicious email from an individual that you believe is fraudulent from that individual, contact that individual through a different way, and then please let us know. Please let the CIO's office know or global security. Thank you.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you. Another question about WhatsApp. Is WhatsApp fully encrypted as it is advertised?
It is encrypted, but even encryption can be broken by the right people with the right skills. This is not giving a whole lot away, but I referred to a country earlier in this presentation. And one of those countries, I traveled to them, and this was way back when we were using BlackBerry devices. And at that time, BlackBerry devices were being talked about as being the ultimate in encryption and safe for businesses. And there was one country that was out there, not used in this presentation that was saying, oh, you can't bring BlackBerry devices into this country because you all could be talking about anything and that information, we can't track down what's going on. Well, one of the countries that I talked about in this presentation said, sure, come on, bring the BlackBerries, no problem. So that's telling you that these government agencies are out there with the ability to hack into your devices. There are entities that are out there that can get that information. So even though you think it's encrypted, it is a level of protection. It's kind of like putting a lock or a couple of locks on your door. It's going to keep out a lot of stuff, but if somebody really wants to get in there, they're still going to find a way to get in.
Yes, sir. Just a couple more from the chat, and then we
Yes,
have
ma'am.
some raised hands.
Absolutely.
Google keeps all of my passwords. Is this?
The Google Password Manager is relatively safe. Google also uses at least two-factor authentication. I know that I think that they use multi-factor, so they make you go through 3 steps in order to access it sometimes. And if you log onto a new device that Google does not recognize, for instance, I'm on my desktop right now, I have my phone next to me, but if I were to go to a different device that I've not logged onto in a very long time, it would say, hey, it seems like you're using a new device. Can you authenticate through the proper measures? And then it would say, okay, now that you have authenticated, this is your access to your passwords. And once you have authenticated into your account, in order to get into the passwords, you still have to re-authenticate. So all of that is to say you are having to go through multiple steps. Whoever gets your information is going to have to go through multiple steps in order to access that. So password managers like Google, while they are not the most secure things, and if you're dealing with secret and top secret information, you already have this answer, but no, that is not an appropriate place for that. But otherwise, if you're dealing with sensitive information, even as a medical professional or a psychiatrist or something, you definitely can use that in order to help manage your passwords if you are keeping complicated passwords. But the best thing is to think of locations and dates that are not associated with you, not your date of birth, not your child, but things that you know that still have significance for you. That special location that you used to like to go to vacation to, that place that you once visited that really left a memory, or a relative that is long gone that nobody really thinks about, and you still remember the data on that person. Absolutely. That type of stuff is stuff that you can use in order to create passwords, substituting symbols that really make it difficult for hackers.
Fantastic. So just a few more. As of November 15th, all open Twitter accounts can be used for AI development. Should this platform be used by individuals and churches?
So AI has a lot of great advantages. And I have a brother who actually teaches stuff with AI, but I would say AI helps you think through a lot of variables, but AI should not be the thing that does all your work. I know that there have been people who have had AI write sermons for them, but the thing of it is that you have to go back, you have to make sure that all of that information is accurate. And I'm seeing your nods because sometimes it will create some stuff in there. Whether you're talking about AI generated images with extra digits on people's hands, whether you're talking, I mean, AI is good, but it's not perfect. So use AI as a tool to supplement your search needs and use it with the knowledge that it's also going to record your patterns and your activity. But yes, you can use AI in order to enhance your performance, but it should not be doing all of the work for you.
Yes, sir. Is it a major concern when an often used site's URL shows a slight change? For example, recently, including tonight, the usual www.zoom.us kept changing to zoom.com. Also, the home screen for Zoom blinks strongly when connecting.
So there are different reasons that it may change the URL, the universal record locator, but what you should keep in mind is that it pretty much works backwards on the way that the URL is composed. So the tail end of it may be the location information, but the crucial stuff is toward the beginning. Now, the best thing to look for if you're really concerned about your information on a legitimate site, especially things like banking, medical information, stuff like that, is look for HTTPS, the letter Sierra at the end. HTTPS. That means that it should be secure. If you do not see the letter S there, I would be very careful. I would be very reluctant to put my information out there on a site like that. So make sure that you have to log in and go through passwords and extra steps in order to get to that information. Because if you don't, it may not be a legitimate site. And a lot of times, you will put in information, and if you're just one character off, I will use this example with United Airlines. I noticed that I was having a typo for a while of untied rather than United, and untied exists. So be careful with how you type it, because really good hackers will say, okay, well, people are inclined to have this typo, and we will take them to a site that looks just like it, and we can get their information from that. So be very careful about that. And yes, the reality is that we do have some connectional websites that need to be updated and brought up to speed. Thank you, Dr. Thomas, for that point. That we do need to make sure that we are operating on secure websites, and we are trying to standardize that right now. But for various reasons, I will admit that throughout all of our districts, we do not have quite yet the standardization. And I know Madam CIO is 100% on board with this, trying to get us more secure. But we have to get everybody to work on the same page, and we have to get everybody to agree to these protocols. And they aren't all convenient, but we are keeping people more secure as we progress through this by enhancing these steps with this information. So thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So last one from the chat. What measures should we take when companies have data breaches and have not properly safeguarded our information, i.e. doctors' offices, banks, schools, hotels?
Absolutely. Back in 2014, I believe it was, I was the victim of the OPM breach along with many, many others. And what OPM offered me at that time was monitoring that still occurs to this day, even in my retired status from the government. But what it does is it tells me if there is any activity with that. So there are certain monitoring companies, major financial companies, that will monitor that, but it comes at a cost a lot of times, unless you have been the victim of a data breach and a confirmed victim, not just it's where it's a question as to whether your information was part of what was out there. But if they have confirmed that you were the victim of a data breach, you can ask them and say, hey, I need to have this monitoring. Are you able to assist me with the cost of this? Because if you do not ask, you definitely can't be told no until you have asked. But if you ask, a lot of times that monitoring of those websites is crucial for it. And I've had a couple of times where it's told me, hey, your information was used on a website that you've not used before, and this could be fraudulent activity, and it wasn't. But it's information that helps us monitor that in order to make sure that social security numbers, addresses, things like that are still secure. So definitely ask about monitoring sites and software. Things like Equifax is a great company for it. Experian, things like those. And I have no connection to those, but those are some of the ones that OPM had provided for me.
So, Director Cromwell, thank you
Yes, ma'am.
so very much for your time this evening. I know that there are probably 1,000 more questions here. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and type your question in the chat. We're going to save the chat. Just know that Director Cromwell and I talked about doing this a second time, that we would do it at a time that was convenient for our global districts, which says that if you want to go through this again, that we will do it at a time that is convenient for our global districts, and you can join us for that. So we will put that information out as soon as we're able to schedule that. There's one more person that we need to consider in the scheduling of that. So we are looking forward to this information being shared again. We will share the slides here. We will share the chat for this event this evening. And Director Cromwell, we thank you so much for
you,
your
ma'am.
expertise, for your time, and for this extraordinary training that has been so helpful to us this evening. And so, because we could stay here all night long answering questions,
May
and
we
so
unmute to say
let's not
thank
do
you?
that. Dr. Henderson, you still here? You celebrating your not major birthday today? And that's fine. And
No,
so,
I'm still here.
okay, very
I would
good.
not leave. I'm here.
Go ahead and give us your closing final remarks, and we are ready to close this down for tonight.
No, I just want to say this training was outstanding, but that is always exemplary of Director Cromwell. We appreciate his particular skill, his astuteness, and his guidance in this particular area. And prayerfully, everyone that was on the platform tonight got something from it. We'll continue to do this type of training as long as you feel it necessary. God bless you. Be encouraged, and Merry Christmas again.
Thank you. Thank you to those bishops who joined us this evening, our Episcopal supervisors who were present, general officers. Thank you for joining us this evening. And to everyone else, God bless you. Have a wonderful and restful night tonight. And we will see you at the next opportunity to gather for our security and safety training series. God bless you all. And you can unmute and say hello to each other. You can shout questions to Director Cromwell as we
Thank
close it
you.
out.
Excellent
Thank you so
presentation.
much.
Hi,
Thank you so much.
everybody.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. Great information.
Great
you.
information.
Thank you.
Hello
Have a blessed
from the
holiday.
Totally 10.
Totally 10.
We
Good night,
wish
everyone.
you a Merry
From the
Christmas
first district.
Thank
and
you.
a Happy New Year.
Excellent training. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cromwell.
Reverend Taronda.
Hey, Reverend Fry.
Thank you, dear.
God bless you.
Thank you,
Good
Reverend
training
Rhonda.
from the 8th.
Y'all
Excellent
having too much
training from the
fun.
6th.
Y'all having too much fun.
Yeah.
Dr. Kamara,
And
for
that's from
that
the fifth
wonderful,
That's what it's all
excellent
about.
That's from the
training.
fifth
Thank you so
district,
much.
Andre Turner from the first.
Thank you,
Amen.
Madam
Amen.
Secretary.
We're coming back.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.